still debating, which I think is kind of ridiculous. Yet everyone gets mad at Santa Clara for ending really, really late. It's like, well, would you rather be here on Monday?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, after we had finished debating at like 1:30 in the morning, I was very glad to go to bed. But
Oh wait, SCU, you're in Dutch collective.
no,
that was
Stanford. I was debating
At
midnight to like 1:30.
They promised that wouldn't happen this year, but they promised that last year too.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Logan actually does run on time though. Yeah. It does mean that the tournament runs over 4 days, but it doesn't end that late.
Also, with everybody going to Stanford, it probably won't be that much.
It'll be interesting. Oh, you know, that's a good point. It might be a really small tournament.
I don't know how big it is.
Which may be better for you.
Yeah, but I want to have good opponents.
We'll see. Alright. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Time starts. I strongly affirm today's resolution that Republicans are losing their political relevance. First, I'll briefly go over some framework for this debate and then move into the affirmed team's contentions. Republicans are clearly the Republican political party, looking specifically both at candidates running for the Republican nomination for president, as well as current and potential future members of the House and the Senate. Their political relevance is their ability to connect with the political reality, connect with voters, and have opinions aligned with that of the overall American electorate, as relevance has to do with whether they are able to connect to it and are appropriate to that audience. This debate should be judged overall on preponderance of evidence, so whichever side can prove their case more entirely true, with facts as to why the Republicans would or would not be politically relevant. Are there any questions about framework?
Can you go over your definition of relevance?
Yes. Relevance is them being appropriate to the particular audience and successfully able to connect to them and be relevant to the way that the political reality is turning and so forth. Moving on to the affirmed team's case. Our first point is looking at climate change. Now, the Republican Party overall is entirely against climate change, and they make claims over and over again that climate change isn't real, that humans have no role in it, etc., etc. However, the evidence overwhelmingly shows both that climate change is real, but also that Americans overwhelmingly support this, with 70% of the American population strongly believing that there is solid evidence that climate change exists and that humans play a role in it, even including approximately 56% of all registered Republican voters. Now, if you look at actual Republican candidates within the political party, you'll see that this is not the case at all, with 5% of Republicans in Congress believing that climate change is a problem and being willing to make any sort of vote in favor of it. That is exactly 11 people out of the House of Representatives. Compare this 5% to the overall, even just Republican voter rate of 56%. Clearly, Republicans are losing their political relevance because they cannot follow their own facts and they do not have anywhere near the same viewpoints as even their own electorate, the Republican voters. In fact, we see in the last year that the Senate failed to pass a resolution that would have said that humans play a role in climate change, that we affected its rise and we can help affect preventing it. The Republicans prevented this from passing because they did not believe that that was true. Whereas you see, if you look at the actual population, they overall do, which has led to us not passing any sort of policies on climate change through Congress. If we're looking at cap and trade or a carbon tax, any of these sorts of limits have to come through President Obama, because the Republicans are that out of touch with reality. Now, our second point is looking at that of minority voters. Republicans are losing their political relevance because they cannot successfully connect with people who, to put it frankly, aren't white, male, and older. Because we see overall that most of the rest of the electorate overwhelmingly sides with the Democrats. Why? Because Republicans are against the issues that these people care about most. They're against immigration reform. For instance, we have Trump saying that all Muslims should be required to wear an identification badge at all times, saying that all Mexicans should be deported back to Mexico, or that we should build a wall. Now, sadly, this isn't just Trump. The vast majority of the Republican Party, while perhaps not nearly as extreme as Trump, do support going against these immigrants, against anyone who basically isn't white. They don't care much about racial gaps in education, about blacks being disproportionately suffering from crime, any of that. All of their policies go against that. And because we see instead that minority voters still exist and are an increasingly important part of the elections and of people getting elected to both Congress as well as the presidency, Republicans are losing this relevance because they're out of touch with the electorate they need to win. We see in the last election, Romney got 17% of the non-white vote, in comparison to 59% of the white vote. Now, generally speaking, you would expect it to be a lot closer to each other. But no, he could not connect with these minority voters because the Republican Party views are just so contrary to what these people care about. And this has not changed in the past few years and has not changed for the current election cycle going on right now. So they're losing this relevance. If they can only connect to white voters, they have no hope in our future. For America is not getting more white, it's getting less white. Now to move on to our third point, which is that of women's rights as well as the rights of the LGBTQ community. Now overall, Republicans are against abortion, against the right to choose, against policies that would help to enforce gender equality, against same-sex marriage, etc. Basically, against the rights of everyone except for men to be considered equal and have equal opportunities. We see this in the blatant misogyny of these Republican candidates on stage and their refusal to even apologize about any of it. We see from the facts the Republicans have not won the women's vote since 1988. And in 1988, they only got it by 1 percentage point. Since then, they have gotten a vast minority of all female voters because females see that the Republicans aren't there to help them. They're not supporting any sort of policies that they would support. Because women overall are more likely to support things like funding for Planned Parenthood, more economic opportunities for people of lower socioeconomic status. All of these things the Republicans overall vote against. We can even see this as well as with the LGBTQ community right now, as over the summer when the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage, with the backlash from the Kentucky clerk, Kim Davis. We get Republican candidates standing out in support of Kim Davis, who refused to issue same-sex marriage licenses. Clearly, they're out of touch with the political reality because overall Americans support both same-sex marriage as well as gender equality, whereas Republicans refuse to do anything about it. Our fourth point is looking at that of gun control. Right now, 85% of all Americans are in favor of expanded background checks, including 79% of just Republican voters, and an overall 57% supporting the much more controversial ban on assault weapons, because they are against the extremely high toll gun violence is taking on our society. And yet, Republicans remain in the hands of the NRA, do nothing, have done nothing, and overwhelmingly as a party, do not support expanded gun control or of any sort. So clearly in this as well, they are losing their political relevance. And for all this, I strongly affirm. I was just looking at you. Are you like...
Okay, I'm gonna look at Okay. So, as a brief off-time recap, I'll be going over and addressing framework first, brought up by the affirmative team. Let's call it a topicality. Then we're gonna go over their definition. I'll explain it. Then we're gonna go over the app team's case and go over net team's case. So, time starts now. As the first speaker of the litigation team, I strongly negate today's resolution. The Republicans are losing their political relevance. So, the definition brought up by the affirmative team is they must connect, and relevance is they must be able to connect voters' opinions and connect not just to their voters but also the electorate of the country. So, however, what the affirmative team should have done is provided a fair and clear definition. However, what they did is they just limited it to the scope of that was actually just to connecting and opinions. So this is bad because it's unfair to the negation team because of prep skew, time skew, and the fact that I self-taught. I'm sorry, not at this time. I have to get through
It's
this.
a little important for your topicality.
Okay, I know I'm.
Do you have any sort of alternative definition, and if so, why is this alternative any better?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna actually get to that point. So, yeah, okay, so going on to our alternative definition, which I probably should have gone into. Okay, so we define relevance as in terms of the Republican Party's influence or the impact of whether good or bad within their party or throughout the country. This is better because you're not just limiting the scope just to their ability to connect with voters. We are also including the impacts they've had and not just the influence, not just the connections with voters. I'm sorry, not at this time. I'm just gonna get to the case now. So we're gonna adjust their case now. So they first brought up how a majority of Republicans don't support climate change, because of and 70% of Americans in totality actually do strongly believe climate change is a problem. So, and what we see here is that the Republicans and if only 56% actually of the Republican Party have believed that this is a problem. What the Authority Team is trying to say is that they aren't able to connect with their voters, and therefore they are losing their voting base. However, what must be taken into consideration is that, all right, fine.
So if you were to say that something is irrelevant, would you be saying that it has no impact, or would you just be saying that it doesn't matter to the case at hand?
Both. I'm gonna regret this. Yeah. Okay. So what we're saying is that although Republicans don't support climate change and the LGBT issues and the abortion issues that everyone on the team has brought up, the fact is that they still exist today, and also 39% of the country is registered Republican, and they will probably vote for the Republican Party. And if they're going to vote for the Republican Party, this means they still do have relevance, and they are going. I'm sorry, I really should get through this case. They're going to vote for the Republican Party because they believe that at the end of the day, the Republican Party has more of the values that they agree with than.
Is this your case or refutation?
This is actually addressing all three of your contentions regarding LGBT, abortion, and climate change. Okay, and also because they have been able to have power in Congress and because they have blocked some of these laws, it's true that they have power and therefore they do have relevance because they're able to stop laws that could potentially help these situations and issues. So going on to our first contention, the Republican Party has 39% has voters, and so currently 39% of the has 39% of the American population. Democrats have 48%. However, although they do have this gap, the fact is that they still have voters. There are still going to be people who are going to vote them into office, and currently Republicans actually do hold Congress. And because they hold Congress, they have voting power, and they can control legislation that is going to be passed. And important legislation too, such as whether we should send troops to stop ISIS, whether we should pass more gun control laws. All this, the Republican Party has power over all of this. Therefore, they do have relevance because they can be the deciding factor in whether key and crucial laws get passed. And this can impact not just their party base, but also the whole country. Going on, the Republican Party, and because they've been able to block laws, it shows that they do have power and they do have relevance. They have blocked key, yes.
Since when is power the same as relevance?
Well, if you're relevant, it means you have.
Where did you get this definition?
I'm sorry, okay, but this is a very ask-you debate, okay? I'm really.
Where did you get the definition?
So something I was trying to format myself, but I realized I should have just searched it up on the dictionary.
That's what I did.
Yeah, I really should have done
Ours
that.
is the dictionary definition.
I'm sorry, okay?
We're doing fine. Keep going.
Yeah,
Stop
so,
taking my questions.
Yeah, just
okay, so, number 2, the Republican Party does have relevance because they are supported by very large corporations in America. Some of these corporations include Coca-Cola, Walmart, almost every oil company, and every American airline. The Republican Party has the backing of all of these. So what we do see is corporate America does have a very big part to play in Congress because of a lot of the laws that would favor them. What they usually use their people they support as their method of having laws that would benefit them. They usually use the person they're backing as a way to get the law that they want. So what we see here is that the impact of this is that when you have huge corporations supporting the Republican Party, it shows that the Republican Party has money, and when they have money, they have the ability to have huge campaigns, and they can do laws that are 15-second grace period. They can do laws that are more favorable to corporations, and this shows that it's going to have this huge impact toward the corporations, which is a huge part of America. And I'm sorry, this is a really bad debate. These topics are
This
just.
was one of the better ones, too.
I don't know what I'm gonna do at Logan if they have these topics. I really
We'll-
don't know.
we'll go over
Like
it.
last stuff, they had stuff like Spotify and cupcakes.
And have shopping malls lost their relevance?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
I remember that.
That's just
Like JV has to do this stuff too. Like this is just like novice. Oh my god. I don't know what I'm gonna
This
do.
was
for
varsity.
This is varsity. Who thought of these topics?
Very brilliant.
There's some stupid order.
Alright, go.
Okay. As a member of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the Republicans are losing their political relevance. As a brief roadmap, I'm going to be going over framework and move on to address the affirmative team's case and then the negation team's case. Okay. So the negation team has brought up an issue with our definition, and they've essentially, their alternative definition is that its influence and importance within their party and or throughout the country for the reason that they're somehow increasing the scope of this debate. Now, this definition is not relevance. They're literally changing the meaning of this word entirely. This is not widening the scope of the debate. It's just entirely changing it. If the writers of this resolution wanted to write this resolution as with influence, they would have included that word in there instead of writing relevance instead. Okay. So they also tell you that we don't really have a clear definition. We give you a clear example of what exactly we mean by this definition by saying that, oh, do these candidates actually have opinions that mirror those of the American electorate? Can they actually connect with these voters? Do they actually represent America? So that's our definition, and clearly it's very obvious what that means. So they also tell you that they're unfair to the negation team because of prep skew and ground skew. Okay, clearly they ran their case. They haven't provided any how they've lost any of their contentions at all, so this isn't ground skew at all. And they provided their own definition and ran with that throughout the debate. So I don't see how there's any prep skew here. Okay. Okay, also they didn't have any voters, so this isn't a reason to vote for them. Okay. Moving on to address the affirmative team's case, so going on to the first contention where they talk about how, 39% of the American population is actually strongly Republican. Well, actually 25% of the American population is strongly Republican. So that statistic is actually incorrect. They also tell you that Republicans, because Republicans have power, they're also relevant. As my partner brought up in a point of information, power is not the same thing as relevance. Okay. So it's not the same thing at all. This is a misconception that they make throughout the debate, and which we'll see will actually, work in favor for the affirmative team. They also don't refute the next. Just essentially extend everything. They literally just have a problem with our evidence, and they bring up this one statistic and they tell you that power is equal to relevance. I've refuted both of those, so you can essentially extend the whole affirmative case of climate change, minority votes, women's and LGBTQ rights, and gun control. So how they're out of touch with voters on all of these because the majority for climate change, the majority of Republican voters actually believe that it's real and that humans play a role in it. That two, minority votes, that really Republicans only appeal to those to white males who are older, and so because they're just not in touch with voters on several issues, including immigration. And thirdly, that they're really not in touch with women, that they haven't been able to win the female vote since 1988, and even then only by 1 percentage point. And again, they're also out of touch with voters on the LGBTQ issue because the majority of Americans actually support same-sex marriage and gender equality. And of course, for our fourth contention about gun control, how the majority of the population actually wants to expand gun control, but Republicans, are still in the hands of the NRA. They actually haven't been able to create any change related to gun control. Okay, moving on to address the negation team's contentions. First of all, that I believe it was about how because the Republicans hold Congress, they have the power to write legislation, and so because they block laws, they have power, and that makes them relevant. Once again, power does not make them relevant. Okay, so the way that America works, like, people are supposed to have a say on legislation. Now, like, the Republicans will essentially always have an impact on policy, and that's pretty much how America is supposed to work. And how do we, like, measure this impact and say that, how are we supposed to, like, measure this impact? Where's the bright line for relevance? Where does power turn into relevance, essentially? So meanwhile, you can actually measure, like, voter support for Republicans. You can actually measure what Americans, like, feel on these issues through polls and other things like that. Okay. Yes.
So, if one of our statistics that the majority of Americans do support gun control laws, and we have shown that the Republicans have been able to reject key legislature that would have helped, are you saying that they have no impact,
Okay, I'm saying that impact on policies is entirely different from political relevance. Yes. Okay. Moving on to address the second contention about how the Republicans are supported by large corporations, and they tell you that, oh, yes, all these big corporations are supporting the Republicans, and if they have money, that means they have power, which means that they have the ability to pass laws. Okay. First of all, these corporations are extremely wealthy, and they're a minority of the people. So the Republicans don't have the backing of a majority. So unions spend 10 times as much as super PACs and corporations, and unions actually tend to support Democrats. So this is the majority of the population who is actually supporting who are actually supporting the Democrats and not the Republicans. So they're actually giving Democrats more money, which means that if we're talking on the terms of the negation team, the Democrats have more political relevance than the Republicans. Okay. And so for these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
I don't know, it's a really bad talk. I know it's really bad, okay? But, like, this is a really bad, it's a bad talk. I really don't know how to do this. It's okay. Yeah. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay, so just gonna get right into it. So, as like Speaker of the Negation Team, I strongly negate today's resolution that Republicans are losing their political relevance. So first of all, I'm going to address the key issue in definitions that seems to be going on throughout the whole case, which is the idea that power is not equal to relevance politically. However, this is not true, as power is clearly a key necessary component of political relevance. Historically, there have been third-party groups that addressed issues that many voters had views that aligned with views of those parties. However, since they did not have the political power to influence legislature, they didn't have seats in Congress, they didn't control the presidency, they were unable to have any real standing with the voters. We've seen this through populist parties, Green Party today. These parties don't have political relevance, even if they match the views of voters, because they don't have power. So clearly, power is a key component of relevance. So these things are not entirely unequal as the AF team would have you believe. So I don't know what to say. Okay.
Why is your definition better?
Okay, so our definition is better because, well, they're talking about the point of view, the viewpoints of the Republican Party compared to, I'm sorry, not at this time, compared to the viewpoints of its voters. What we're talking about is the ability of the Republican Party to influence and create an impact on the political situation today, and that's a better definition than the one the AF team has provided, because in a real life situation, as we've stated, the Republican Party has more support of big businesses such as oil companies and airlines. So through this support, the Republican Party has more power in the political system today. Because of this, it's able to have more impact rather than, just because it doesn't agree with voters, it's not there. So it's more realistic to assume that, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, yes?
Would you say that it is more educational to back statistics on what percentage of the population supports the Republicans, or rather whether the Republicans have the same types of views on different important issues that we could then talk about as the population?
Just keep going. Honestly,
I don't even know what to do anymore.
just say like I'm wasting my time and go stop. Just go over RK. So at least it's something we know.
Okay. So,
Charge of hardness. Like, yeah.
So yeah, our definition is better than theirs because we're providing more education, because we're modeling the real world where power is more important than voters' opinions. Okay. So I'm going to go over our case because I have no clue what to say. So our first contention was that currently there are 39% voters who go Democratic and 48% that go, wait, what? No, 39 Republican, 48 Democratic. However, they've stated that, the AF team has stated that there are only 25% strongly Republican and that power is not the same as relevance. However, as we've stated, 39% of people are affiliating themselves with Republicans when it comes to voting. The gap between Democrats and Republicans is literally 9%. They're not going anywhere. So the fact that these people continue consistently, I'm not taking your question, sorry, voting Republicans clearly shows that they are satisfied with their party and they feel that the party is catering to them, otherwise they wouldn't be voting for it. So this shows that since the number continues to remain like that, that the Republican Party is politically relevant among its constituents, even going by the AF definition. So, yeah. So Republicans currently hold power in Congress. What this means is that they are able to do a number of things. They can declare war on ISIS. They can block legislation on gun control. They can potentially even organize a government shutdown. So this shows that they clearly have power, and this is something that we should be debating rather than whether they are liked among their voters or not. Because, as we've stated in our third convention, the Republican Party isn't securing companies like Coca-Cola, Walmart, oil companies, and major U.S. airlines are funding them. And even if unions are funding the Democratic Party, these big businesses are providing way more funding to the Republican Party than these union groups. So, yeah, vote
Okay. brief off-time roadmap. We're just going to be going over voter issues. And before I start, I just like to say what a bad resolution this is. This is a really bad resolution. Time starts now. As the final speaker of the negation team, I strongly negate today's resolution. The Republicans are losing their political relevance. So what we've seen in today's debate is the AF team has come up with their definition of relevance and has talked about how the Republicans are losing, losing their voter base because they aren't supporting the more favorable sides of climate change, minority groups, LGBT issues, and abortion. Okay, but what must be understood, Judge, is that at the end of the day, there are people who are going to be voting Republican solely for the fact that they are part of the Republican Party. It doesn't matter who the Democratic candidate is. There are people who will always vote for the Republican Party no matter what their stance is on these issues. Because it's... Okay, fine. Okay, this is actually kind of new information, yeah.
Alright, do it for me. If you accept my point of order, I think.
I don't know what to do. But actually, wait, hold on. I did say there are people who are just going to vote for the Republican Party.
The articulation that there will be people voting for the Republicans regardless of any views on particular stances is entirely new in the last speech.
I kind of said that in my second speech, actually. I kind of was like,
You
oh,
haven't had a second speech.
Sorry, the first speech. I was just like, oh, they kind of don't support it. I mean, no, they don't support it. Republican.
Okay. Point taken into consideration.
Okay. That's what I can say. Okay. So, yeah. So, also, the Republican Party does have voters. They have 39% of the populace. Compared to the Democrats, 48%, but they still do have power. And at the end of the day, what the negation team has been trying to say all along, and which we believe to be true, is that in order to have some sort of relevance, power is a key component. So, what we do see is that, for example, the Republicans control Congress. Because they can control Congress, they have key voices, and they are the deciding vote on issues that are really important, such as gun control, ISIS. And which impacts Americans, because gun control is something that really does. Yeah, so they have their impacts. Whether negative or positive, the Republican Party has a huge impacts because they are the deciding vote on these key issues. What we also see is that throughout historical times, they still have their voter base. They still exist today. And they aren't going to go anywhere. So going into second contention is that they have a powerful backing of these huge companies. This is Coca-Cola, Walmart, almost every oil company in America, almost every American Airlines. That's a huge amount of money that labor unions can't really match, because like oil companies, Walmart, Coca-Cola. Yeah, that's like a lot of money. Oh my gosh, you should have said that in like another Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm saying. Yeah, and because they have money, it still means that they have a voice, because money actually gets things done. Although it shouldn't be that way, it's true. Money gets things done. And the Republican Party has a lot of money. And this topic is really bad.
We'll go over it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say. Yeah, the Republican Party still has a relevance. We're just going to hit the key issue of the backup. They still have Congress. They still are holding important legislature, which is impacting all of Americans and possibly overseas too. And even though what they say is, even though their stance on issues are not really the right standpoint, or it just doesn't make any sense, the fact is they still have their impacts, they still have their relevance, and they still exist today. They're not losing their political relevance. I strongly urge you to vote back.
Alright, what did you define as political relevance?
That was a lot.
Their ability to connect with the political reality and with voters.
So that's their definition. Their definition is the ability to have an influence or impact on the party or the nation.
Couldn't you just say that?
I don't know.
No, you could have just said that they're gaining more attention, right? So in a sense, they're more.
Thanks for
relevant.
putting this now.
Sorry, I just got back from a stressful conference. stressful because she made me spill all my secrets. She's like,
Who's your counselor?
Miss Pollock,
She's me too.
she's like,
Okay,
you
later.
need to
It's
be
my
afraid.
speech.
Tell me things.
We have the counselor
That's really
scare
creepy.
me so much.
I know. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to be going over
Okay.
overview, then I'll go ask case and next case.
Please don't tell us.
But.
The things you do for debate.
Alright, time starts now. The negation team will be losing today's debate on their fundamental misunderstanding of what today's resolution is actually about. From the very beginning, this resolution says Republicans are losing their political relevance, talking about whether or not they're actually relevant to politics. Throughout this entire debate, my opponents continue to stick to their definition that relevance should instead be influence or impact on the overall country. Now, as my partner brought up, if the resolution was supposed to mean influence or impact, the resolution could have said influence or impact. But the fact is the definition of relevance, both in a dictionary... Are you pointing forward?
No.
It's not new, by the way.
Yeah, I think you said something along those lines.
Okay. The actual dictionary definition of relevance is whether it's appropriate or connectable to the current context, not whether it has power. Let me give you a brief analogy. I can start talking about a random story in the middle of class. I think we would agree if I'm talking about what happened with my cat, for instance, it's not really relevant to physics. That doesn't mean I can't have an influence and make people laugh. Having an influence is not the same thing as having relevance. And on this point alone, my opponents will be losing today's round, because their standards simply do not stand in the round, and they're out of touch with what this reality actually is. They claim it'd be more educational, but under their world, we'd just be batting back and forth statistics on what percentage support the Republicans and whether or not Republicans have power. That's not educational. Definitely no more educational, and usually far less, than actually talking about what they support and what that means for the voters. So clearly the affirmative team's definition still stands in the round. Now my second voter issue is that Republicans are losing relevance right now, that they're getting more and more out of touch with reality. As we can see in all of our points, these are instances of, sure, they're not entirely relevant yet. They're getting less and less relevant. As we brought up, they had the women's vote in 1988. They had enough white vote to win even if they didn't have the non-minority just a few years ago. But from then until now, they have been losing this relevance. They're losing out as Americans support climate change more than they have before. They're losing as more people support same-sex marriage than ever before. As more women, more minorities are voting, more people are moving towards views that gun control should be expanded. The resolution doesn't say they've lost it entirely, but the facts do show that they are losing it. Our third voter issue is looking at the overall criteria, or preponderance of evidence. Who is actually proving their own side? My opponents just bring up that since they still control Congress and have some money, they're still relevant. That just means that they have some measure of power, that they still exist. That doesn't mean they aren't losing their relevance. My opponents have failed to prove that their relevancy is either the same or increasing, but rather just showing that it still exists, which is only defense and cannot win them the round. Now to go briefly over the affirmative case. Extend the majority of our first point on climate change, which shows that Americans overwhelmingly support that climate change exists and humans have a role in it, more so than ever before, while Republicans have not changed. When the voters are moving beyond and the Republicans are staying behind, that clearly shows they are losing that relevance. From our second point, extend once again, they cannot win without minority voters, and they do not have those minority voters. This has never been refuted throughout the entire round. So clearly it shows the Republicans are losing in the past few years and will lose even more in the future since they have done nothing to turn this act around. They have done nothing to go against their rhetoric that says Mexicans, Muslims, anything don't belong in the United States. Clearly they're losing their relevance as this population becomes a bigger portion of the electorate, but they don't start supporting it. On our third contention, extend once again that women as well as support for LGBTQ community is increasing in the status quo among the electorate. And yet the Republicans, once again, have not changed anything. That, too, is a sign of them losing their relevance because they're not moving with the times and are stuck in the past. And on our fourth point, that of gun control, again, not even refuted, showing clearly that Americans who support gun control are out of touch with the Republican Party, who does not. Now, on the negation case, their only arguments are that Republicans still control Congress, that they still have money. First of all, the 25% is truly the correct stat. 39% is not how many Republicans there are. It is actually 25 who self-identify as Republican, nowhere near a majority. Second of all, sure they have money, but 10 times as much for the Democrats. Clearly, Republicans are losing their relevance. Strongly affirm.
Okay. So, a couple things for you two first. So, unfortunately, you might get topics written like this